Good morning. This is Country Computer Consultant, and it's raining. Got about 3 inches yesterday, and even that more today because it's running around in my pond, I hope. Well, let's talk about weather. In fact, let's talk about global warming. Why? Why would the Country Computer Consultant talk about global warming? Because the predictions are based on computer modeling. I do have a lot of experience with that because back in the mid-80s, about 3 years working with about 10 PhDs at J.S. Nolan and Associates. What they did was oil reservoir modeling. See how long or how much oil we can get out of the ground in a particular oil field with producers and injectors. The most advanced vectorized Fortran program in the world at the time. Sold for millions of dollars all over the world. I was their only mainly tech guy. I was a computer guy that ported this code, about 150,000 lines of Fortran code, to all of these mainframes, all these parallel processing and vectorized systems. Now, here's the neat part. I also saw how this thing works. Saw all the constants, the variables, the formulas, and all the brain power, human brain power that went behind this highly sophisticated and mostly accurate computer model. Go ahead about 20 years, we have atmospheric computer modeling. This is how they're predicting all this global warming BS. That's what it is, because it is highly subjective, because it's all dependent on the constants, the variables, and all those things I talked about that humans put in. I saw a lot of variance just within 1 year of the production out in the field with this highly sophisticated computer model back then. Now we're trying to predict weather with all sorts of variables. Remember, oil field is very static. The ground, injectors, producers, a lot of things we control, a lot of things that were static. Weather, totally different. Alright? This is one of the first times the weather guys accurately predicted good rain. 9 out of 10 times, they say it's going to rain here, it don't rain here. That's only a few days out. Now do the math on years and decades. So let's go through some things here. This is not just me that's endowed with this highly controversial thing called global warming. By the way, they changed it a few times, so they're just calling it global change now. Okay, back in 2003, they put out 3,000 scientific robot probes into the oceans of the world. Let them swim around there for 3 years, and guess what happened? No recorded warming of the Earth. Now, all the global warming is supposed to come from the ocean. It didn't happen. By the way, that's from NPR, and that was reported in March 2008. Now let's talk about how they capture and how they measure this global warming. You know, weather stations all over the world, right? Well, back in from 1950s to the 1980s, there were anywhere from 12 to 14,000 of them. Well, this thing called the Cold War ended. In the mid-90s, Soviet Union collapsed. They shut down half of them. And guess where that half of them were? Siberia. Really freaking cold there. Gee, you think if you take away a lot of the sampling data points from the majority of them highly cold, it might skew your data line? Maybe so. Think about that one. NASA. Y2K bug. They had to go back and redo all their math because of a mathematical error on the Y2K bug. They only found this about 2 years ago, 2007. Okay? And then they had to go back and say, well, you know, the warmest year wasn't back in the 90s. It was actually 1934. Oh, in fact, the last 5 warmest years on record is back in or before World War II, before a lot of these SUVs. Next, the ice cap at Kilimanjaro, Mount Kilimanjaro, you know, the one that Al Gore has in his propaganda film, Inconvenient Truth, Convenient Lie is what I like to call it. That ice cap has been melting since the 1800s. They leave that out of the movie. Now, they've toggled on this about 4 times. In 1895, New York Times is going, this is the new ice age because temperatures are starting to drop, crops are going to fail, starvation, the new ice age. This is 1895. In the 1920s, started to warm up a little bit. Not a lot of SUVs back then. We were still mainly a farming nation back then, okay? Like 20% or less of people lived in urban, 80% of people lived in rural areas. 1920s, Global warming hit the print. Global warming was the big scare. Now let's go about 35 years, or 40 years, 1975 when I was a kid. And they were scaring the crap out of us saying this is the new ice age. Because all the pollutants and all the greenhouse gases, greenhouse effect, now we got global cooling, 1975. Well, just 6 years later, it toggled again in 1981 when I got out of high school saying it's global warming now. And that's all we've had since about 5 years ago when they started saying, oh, well, it's starting to maybe level off. In fact, they did release the revised stats from NASA saying that it hasn't got any warmer since 1998. Well, this is 2009, so the past 10 years it's leveled off, and now it's actually starting to go down a bit. So now they changed the name, not global warming, it's climate change. See, when you don't know what the hell you're talking about, and you're freaking out, you just say, this covers both ends, which debunks your argument really fast. There's this little thing called the medieval period. It was warmer then in the 11th and 13th century than it was over the past 100 years. But that hockey stick that he shows on the Inconvenient Truth, they left out that whole 200 years. Think about that one. Now, it's not just me. There's a lot of other people that are really doubting. Ooh, it started to slow down. Look at all that rain out there. Hot baby dog. I've got some girls going. Y'all take care. Good luck. Bye-bye. Alright, not just me. There's 31,000 scientists that have signed a petition and acknowledgement that this global man-made warming is BS. Again, you'll hear that on CNN, NBC, ABC, CNBC, and all the rest of the left-wing stations. You've heard of, if you all in Houston have heard of Dr. Neil Frank, PhD, was on the Channel 11 top meteorologist for decades. It's a hoax. He says it's a hoax. John Coleman, who was the founder of the weather station. It's a scam. So before y'all start freaking out about this, remember, there's global warming every day. In the morning, the sun comes out and warms up. At night, temperature goes back down, the sun goes back down. Sun has stuff to do with it. Every year, 4 seasons in the year. Why? Because the sun gets there, the sun goes away. Alright? Now, we need to realize that we can't start freaking out and doing all this wild stuff with cap and trade, which will kill our industry. We can't do this wild stuff of making our whole energy producing infrastructure green, because the crap doesn't work very well. I mean, if you do the math on that, these wind stations, they only produce about 3% of what we need. Even we covered the whole United States with these wind farms, which, you know, if you want to do a few, great. You can't shut down your main producers like coal and nuclear energy, which puts out no CO2 at all. We can't kill ourselves with this. Let's get real about it, because I've seen these modeling programs. They're only as good as the people put in it. And when you have your own PhDs and 31,000 scientists, meteorologists, saying that it is not man's fault that's doing it, we got to get a grip. Now, it is good. Dobby, get away from it. Dobby, get away. The dog's about to knock the camera down. He's trying to get out of this rain. Enjoying this global warming, pup? Alright. We just need to get a grip on this and have some common sense, because our Earth has been here for billions of years. There's been other ice ages. Why did they stop? Think about that. Why is now the perfect temperature? And we're actually thinking Obama actually wanted to investigate the possibility of shooting up pollutants into the sky to block the sun to cool the earth. Now, that should scare you. Alright? Well, this is the Country Computer Consultant. Have a good day.